How's everybody doing tonight? This is Chopping It Up Hardcore with Hal Capone, discussion number 55. Tonight, I'm speaking to one of my idols. I'm speaking with Matt Coplon of Reversal of Man, probably my favorite band of all time, them and Tribe Called Quest. Can't wait to talk to him. Super stoked. On top of that, he was in a band called Light Yourself on Fire. And on top of that, he is a professional extreme BMX rider as well. So we'll get to like stuff back in the day. We'll touch on stuff that he's doing now. Can't wait to talk to him. Like I said, he's one of my idols. Him and Alexis Marshall from Daughters. Those two had such a huge impact on me when I was in a band. So yeah, been on vacation for a couple weeks. Took time off. Went to the Bahamas. Hit Florida for a little while, and yeah, it's been good. So just be waiting on Matt. He should jump on in a couple minutes, but I hope everybody's good. Like I said, I'm super stoked on this. Reversal of Man was, I don't know, like I said, they meant so much to me. And, you know, I talked to Jeff Howe on my discussion number 5, which was really great, but I was super nervous back then. I'm a little bit more in tune with things. I was a greenhorn back then. So, yeah. And thank you for everybody and anybody that's watched this and just took a little time out to watch my talks. I appreciate it. You know, I'm not the most eloquent speaker, but I'm just talking to people that I love and admire, and it's been fun. So thank you guys for whoever's watching this, whether it be one person or whatever, 30 people or whatever it is. I truly appreciate you watching. So he should jump on in a couple minutes. I think this is the first time he's done IG Live, so we'll see if we can connect pretty Ron, what's going on, brother? All right, here we go. Matt, I'm going to get you right now.
Hey, Matt.
Oh, what's up, Hal? How are you?
Good. How are you? Can you hear me all right?
I can. I love that that Adam and Slight just put "Why is Matt late?"
No, you're not. You're right on time. 6 o'clock.
Perfect.
Perfect. I want to thank you so much for taking time out to do this. I really appreciate it. And like I said before in my introduction to talking to you, you're one of my idols personally. You and Alexis Marshall from Daughters. Like when I was in bands, I kind of looked up to you guys. You know, I'm older, but I felt so much love for your bands and watching you guys play live that I took a lot from you guys into what I was doing, and I just really appreciate it. And thank you for doing this.
That's humbling, man. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
And like I said, when I talked to Jeff, that was really, really fun. So it was like I just love talking to, you know, anybody from Reversal Man, especially you, because like I said, when I saw you guys up in Rochester, New Hampshire, I was blown away. I barely knew. I think I saw the Gainesville Fest when you guys played, where it was like a crowd all around you and it was crazy. And I didn't really know what to think, but then I saw you guys play up in Rochester, New Hampshire on that 50-plus tour that you did with ASOC, and I was blown away when I saw that live, like personally. So, and on top of that, the flyer is beat up as hell, but I still have the flyer to that.
Awesome.
It doesn't have a bottom, but
beautiful.
20 plus years I kept it. So thank you, man.
Of course.
So usually when I start off, I usually ask, what got you into hardcore? Like, what was the first like bands that kind of drew you into hardcore and punk, and what were you listening to before hardcore and punk?
Well, I was really into metal in the 80s. My older brother, I've got 3 older brothers. My second to me oldest brother was he's about 10 years older than I am, and he's really into metal, like Iron Maiden, Wasp, stuff like that. A lot of hair metal, and he got me into that when I was in elementary school, and then later into Bob Marley, actually, when when he went away to college. He went to Greensboro, UNCG in Greensboro, and came back. I remember like he brought Bob Marley back to me, which like on the political side of things was really, really awesome to hear because
Yeah.
so punk, you know. And I think that was my original tie-in to punk actually was through Bob Marley. And then I started riding BMX in 1989, and I actually only rode with skaters, and a lot of the skaters that I rode with were entrenched in the punk scene from skate videos. So I had gotten into, you know, all the DC hardcore, really got into Operation Ivy as well, really heavily. And then it kind of just stemmed out from there, really. We had a local record store here called the Alternative Record Store that was really like an important aspect of everyone in Tampa with the record selection they had. The people that worked there were really awesome, and they kind of tuned us on to other things. Not to get ahead of myself, but that was where kind of the punk kind of expanded and into high school and whatnot. So
Yeah. What were like a few of the bands that really, really grabbed you though, that you listened to like nonstop when you first started getting into it?
definitely mine, absolutely. I I would say Minor Threat above anyone. I mean, I listened to Minor Threat nonstop. I mean, we had a, you know, I had a cassette like Walkman that I would ride to, and Minor Threat was constantly on loop. And then I remember we used to go to this goth club. There's all these goth. We were in late middle school and high school called DNA, and I remember we were in the parking lot waiting for them to open, and I remember hearing Embrace for the first time, and Embrace kind of really changed things for me as well. You know, as a post-punk kind of genre of music, but still like that aspect of DC and Ian MacKaye playing into that. So really awesome.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's awesome. And I have to ask, what kind of like when you were listening to metal, what were like some of your favorite metal bands? Because I was in the same background. I started from metal and that progressed to hardcore and stuff like that. But just curious on like what bands back then when you were in elementary school kind of hit for you.
Van Halen for sure. I was a
Yeah,
huge Van Halen fan. Honestly, above them all, I think Iron Maiden for sure.
yeah.
Like it was the band, and it's funny because I finally saw them live about 3 years ago, and
Oh, no kidding.
it was incredible. It was so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I loved Iron Maiden too. I was lucky enough to see him. I think I saw him 3 times back in the day. I saw Peace of Mind,
Yep.
Power Slave, and then what was the one after that? Uh,
Seven Son of a Seven Son, or
that's that. Those 3 tours.
yep.
But those tours back then blew my mind. Just the stage alone and you know the theatrics and all that stuff. It was crazy.
That's awesome. Actually, my neighbor across the street who moved away used to call him the neighbor of the beast. He was obsessed with Iron Maiden. So it was funny, like moving into the neighborhood I've been in now for 20 years. He was the first person I met. It was crazy having these insane conversations because he was just a normal, I hate to say it, just a normal dude who just loved Iron Maiden. So it's this cool connection that we have between the two of us. But
Nice, nice. Do you see yourself going back and listening to Iron Maiden nowadays, or?
just listening to him the other day, actually. I was
Oh,
like
nice.
Power Slave the other day, actually.
Nice, nice. I also listened to the talk you did with Ray Harkins, and you said that you got accepted to BU up here, but didn't attend just because of like the tuition and stuff like that. Tell me how you came up here and you kind of had a love for the scene. Tell
Yep.
me a little bit about that.
It's funny because I don't know if I went into detail with Ray on why I didn't end up going to BU, and it was because it was freezing cold. Full disclosure, because I went up, I kind of combined the trip for the was it the New Bedford Fest, and that was the what was that, fall of 1994. So I went to New Bedford Fest, and then my last day I went over to BU to kind of do a walking tour of the campus. And I remember being freezing cold, and that was my first time ever up that far up the East Coast. I'm like, I can't deal with this, man. I was, born and raised in Florida where cold is not an issue, so. But I mean, my connection up there actually was from I dated a woman when I was, I think, a sophomore in high school, named Diane, who was awesome, and she introduced me to a lot of the hardcore bands from up there, mainly Converge. I mean, Halo in a Haystack was a huge record for me. And then I was really into Chillmark. I don't know if you remember them.
Yep, I definitely remember that.
Chillmark. I was really into Daltonic. I was really into New Age, and that was kind of my like intro into those scenes. I just thought it was just such a cool, like, eclectic mix of music up there. And then going to the New Bedford Fest. I actually flew up there alone, and all the people that I met up there were just so rad. And that was my first like connection to New England. And then later on into the BMX scene, I mean, I was just up there 2 weeks ago. Again, I go up there as much as I can. With COVID, I wasn't able to travel up there at all. But I've been up there once. I plan on going up there again in the next 6 months. But I don't know, not to blow smoke, but New England is besides Richmond, it's my favorite scene, period, for both BMX and hardcore. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
So
Were you in like Rhode Island when you came up here just a little
I
while ago?
yeah, I was in Providence. I've got a really close friends, Vic and Kara, own a bike shop called Circuit BMX in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. So I was in Providence most of the time, and then we spent a good amount of time in Connecticut as well. So
Nice, nice. Yeah, I love it up here too. I always say I want to move to Florida, but then, like I said, I just went on vacation. I went to Bahamas, and then I ended up in Destin for a few days, and it was so humid in
yeah,
Destin that like way worse than Bahamas. It was
sure.
like insanely humid there. So I was like, I don't know. I kind of missed, New Hampshire a little bit. And when I got back, I was like, I don't know. I always say I want to move down there, but I guess I don't know. It's a struggle, I guess.
Understandable. The winters down here though are incredible. Summers here are absolutely awful, but winters are worth it. It's so amazing down here. But yeah,
Yeah, I try to come down as much as possible. My wife has family down in Venice, and
oh,
I love that area. And I was in Tampa just a few years ago too. One of her family members took us all around to like George Steinbrenner Stadium and
yep,
took us to the Buccaneers Stadium just to take pictures and stuff. I mean, it was off season, so there wasn't anything going on sports wise down there. But he just like took us all around Tampa and stuff like that. We chilled in Sarasota for a little while. I just love that west side of Florida.
yeah. It's
It's the
funny though.
best.
I just had a session today at my buddy Pinzone's ramp, which is right near the stadium. I was literally like walking distance from Tampa Stadium.
Oh, no kidding.
Funny, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Were you in any? I guess I want to ask is, were you in any bands before Reversal Man, or was Reversal Man your first band that you kind of got
Yeah,
into?
yeah, first band for sure. It was really happenstance. My buddy John, who's the drummer of Versal Man, started a band with a couple really young, much younger than I. Well, not much younger, but like I was how old was I at the time? 17. They were like 15 and 16. The original three members. The original guitarist, both of them, and the bass player were younger kids from Orlando, and then John was in a band called Greening, an old straight edge band from Orlando, that were short lived but had a lot of influence. They were a really really good punk band, and that's how I knew John, from seeing Greening play. And then randomly one night he was like, "You interested in doing vocals in a band?" I'm like, I don't know how, but I'll definitely try. And then I mean it just kind of went from there. But no bands before Reversal.
Yeah, yeah. And Jeff came in fairly after that, right? To play bass.
Jeff was our second bass player after Jason, our original bass player, quit. That was probably maybe less than a year, actually, after the band started. And then Jeff was there until the end.
Yeah,
So,
and the first demo cassette that you guys put out was in '95, correct? It was like,
yeah,
or was it '94?
no, it was 95. We recorded that. We started in March of 95, and then that demo came out, I think, right when I graduated high school, maybe June. I
Yeah.
mean, we wrote those songs really quick. Well, actually, three of those songs already existed before I got into the band, and then I did vocals to them. They didn't have vocals, and then yeah, that demo came out that summer. We were our really good friends band, Order of Importance, was playing at the same time, and they had a really big influence on us. They started the previous summer, so yeah, we started doing things with them. Went to the same recording studio that they did, and did our first tour with them actually to New England. So
Oh, no kidding. No kidding. Order of Importance, that has members of Early Grace, correct?
correct, yeah, yeah. That is wait, Early Grace. It would have been Sean. No, Sean was in Early Grace, the vocalist who's now in Horsewhip. Sean
Yeah.
is guitar Horsewhip, which is Jeff's band.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They're together, yeah. Order of Importance was actually the vocalist for Order of Importance ended up singing for Horsewhip, but he's no longer with the band.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, and he's still a really good friend of mine, and that actually one of my original writing buddies actually was the vocalist for Horsewhip. So
Yeah.
and Order
Yeah.
of Importance, really weird. The BMX scene and the punk scene, like in greater, like in mid Tampa, where we're all from, was really, really interconnected. So
Yeah. And back then, how was the scene? I know you were saying that early on, like mid 90s, it was kind of like a smaller scene in Tampa, and then it kind of grew as like it got later into the 90s, and you guys really had a big scene down there towards like the end of the 2000,
yeah,
right to the 2000 mark. You know what I mean?
yeah, very much so. I mean, there were really, really awesome punk and hardcore bands from here that didn't maybe not travel as much, or didn't. A lot of people unfortunately didn't know about them. Like Scrog was a really, really important band from down here. There was a lot of other bands like from Tampa that played quite a bit. So this was there. It just didn't have. We'd go to shows. I remember going to shows in high school on a weeknight, and there'd be like 7 people to show, and
Yeah.
then Blue Chair was doing shows, which was in Ybor, and a lot of the touring bands came through there. Blue Chair really brought a lot of the bands down that kind of began the scene, and I would say that probably started in '95 was when the shows really started ramping up. I remember seeing Channel, which was Nate. Yeah, from Converge's band. They were incredible. They played with Introspect, actually, and that show, for me, was a really big deal. Assuck played Blue Chair a lot, so did Scrog. So that had a really big influence on us. And then 403 Chaos came along in 1997. That 403 was right across the street from where I went to college, University of Tampa. So I remember leaving my chemistry class and going to see the first show at 403, which was Spanacorzo, and just being blown away, because I would have never expected Spanacorzo to have traveled across, the U.S. to play Florida of all places.
Yeah.
I think things really, like, for that genre of music, like, I don't know, there's so many names for it, but like Power Violence or Screamo or whatever, it really kind of took hold in like late, like say 97 on was when it really took hold. Before that, it was just like Tampa was just a melting pot of eclectic bands that were just really, really good, but not necessarily like of a genre. They were just really good punk bands.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I always talk about Florida bands because I'm huge on. Back then, I was huge on like Bird of Ill Omen,
yeah,
and Omega Man is from Florida, correct?
Tampa, and it's funny.
Which I love Omega Man. That CD that had the I forget, it was just like the silhouettes with the, it said it had like a sign on it, like,
Man,
oh my
yep,
God,
so
that
good.
CD blew me away.
It's funny you say that, because when I got back from the trip, that it was literally on, John Allen, who played guitar in Scrog and Omega Man, had left the original Omega Man screens on my front porch.
Oh,
So I'm going to reprint those. So now that I know that you're stoked on that, I'll print you a shirt.
oh yeah, man, I would love to rock that. I love Omega Man so much. Same thing with like Drag Body was really big when they
Yep.
first came out too, and I was like Morning Again fan too. Like, did you get to see all those bands pretty regularly
Yeah.
down there?
Yeah. Scott, the vocals from Drag Body. They're from Orlando, so they're about an hour and a half from here. I saw Drag Body quite a bit, actually. Bird of the Lemon quite a bit too. They're from South Florida, and even though it's part of Florida, South Florida was like, it's 4 hours from here. So, less, I hate to say it, less us going down there and then more coming to 403 Chaos to play. But Bird of the Lemon played 403 Chaos quite a bit. So,
Yeah, yeah. Now, it was kind of like a big straight edge movement too, with like Morning Again and Culture and Reversal Man and stuff like that. How did you kind of get? Was it Minor Threat that kind of gave you that thought of straight edge and stuff like that?
yeah, I mean, the idea of like I guess the punk idea of straight edge, but my grandmother was, I was raised mostly by my grandmother, who had unfortunately a lot of addiction issues. She had addiction to gambling, not to go too into detail, but she was also an alcoholic, unfortunately. So from a very young age, like, abstain, and I actually remember telling myself, like, you're not going to do this stuff, because I saw how much pain my grandmother was going through, and that, before I found straight edge, I was already living it. I just didn't know that there was kind of a cool group of people that of the same mindset. And then, of course, Minor Threat came along. I'm like, wait a minute, there's like more people that are like this. So, and then, of course, I met more people in high school, and then the straight edge scene was really, really rich at one point. Like, there were so many people here into it, and still friends with a lot of those people from that scene as well. I'd say there's probably, I don't know, the over 40 straight edge scene in Tampa is pretty insane. There's so many people that are still, consider themselves straight edge. Not like a judgmental aspect of that at all, but just,
Yeah, yeah,
that's what they've lived. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Since COVID, I've been sober for 2 years now, and I haven't had a drop of alcohol.
Awesome.
And I haven't, like, I used to smoke some weed back in the day, but I haven't touched it in over 15 years. So I've been straight for, a good 15, 16 years now. And it took me a long time to get older to realize, like, to get there, you know what I mean? It would be the smartest thing for me health-wise and just mind-wise and getting my mind right and having a family and doing all that. So, I'm just happy that I got there, you know what I mean? Because I had my runs when, like the Earth Crisis and the One King Downs and stuff like that, when it was like heightened. I kind of got into that after I got out of high school. I was straight edge for a little while, and then I kind of fell into like some dumb stuff, but now, it's I don't think I'll ever look back, honestly.
Gotcha. That's really, really awesome.
And I also wanted to say, I was brought up by my grandparents as well. I listened to, the podcast 100 Words with Ray Harkins, and we're very similar in that aspect because my mom, without getting into it as well, had addiction problems, and that I kind of fell into my grandparents' hands, luckily, and they gave me, the right ways to do things and smartened me up a little bit because, like, I could have been on a bad path if I had stayed, in that, toxic environment. And also my grandfather was a World War II veteran as well. He was a Pearl Harbor survivor. So, yeah.
That's incredible. It's funny. Literally before I tuned into this, I just found out that ASU offers a master's degree in World War II history, and I'm like, do I really want to go into a rabbit hole into this? So, like, yeah. Anyways, that's another conversation.
Yeah. I miss him like crazy though. He was, very important to me, and I miss him dearly. He passed away 3 years ago, so it's just been tough without him because really he was my dad that brought me up. I didn't have a father figure at all besides him when I grew up, so I just, it was like me and you kind of have a similar background. Not really, but, a little bit there.
Gotcha.
The first thing that I ever heard from Reversal Man was the Puritan split, which blew my mind away. And I asked Jeff about this, the Pilot Gumby sample. Where did you get that from in the beginning? And why isn't it, like, are you going to use that on the new discography that's coming out? Will the sample be on there?
But honestly, I can't remember what that sample was. Can you remind me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like the there's good alcoholic and a bad alcoholic. You know how he takes, a good alcoholic will take 2 drinks and go to bed, and the bad alcoholic will kick the dog. And
I'm sorry. Rephrase the question. I'm sorry. What was that again?
Like, where did you get that sample from, if you can remember? Because it always, when I first put that on, and that was the first thing I ever heard of Reversal Man, I was like, this is amazing. And then the music kicks in, and I was like, oh my God, I'm in love with this album.
Honestly, I don't remember where that sample came from. John did a lot of the sample. He grabbed a lot of the samples. It might have been Jason Crittenden as well. It was probably Jason Crittenden, so I'm not really sure where it came from. Unfortunately, the only one that I remember specifically getting was the "I Wanna Kill Everyone."
Oh, yeah.
Because Burbs, and we were all obsessed with that Tom Hanks movie, The Burbs.
Yeah.
So that's where that came from. But man, I'm sorry. I'll have to get back to you on that, but I'll let you know.
Yeah,
sure.
Definitely. I asked Jeff, and he's like, "Oh, Matt will know. He's probably the one who grabbed it." But
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was blown away. And Puritan was really, really good too. How did you guys hook up that split with, especially King of Monsters, which is like a record label from Arizona, if I'm not mistaken?
I don't remember how the connection came through with Mike. I think he might have reached out to us. Man, I'd have to ask Jeff on that one. I know Mike was at the Indianapolis Fest, which is actually when I met the vocalist for Groundwork. And they had come to the fest together. We were huge fans of Groundwork. I don't know. It must have been that fest maybe, which is where that connection came from. But Puritan, like most of the bands that we did splits with, we were really, really into. We were really Enemy Soil. Which was really cool to hear, interviews with the guys from Page 99 and how much Rich from Enemy Soil was a huge influence on those guys. He was just Rich was just such a cool dude in the Maryland scene. That's neither here. I mean, props to him for sure. But Puritan, we were just really into him. I can't remember what album came out before that, but it was, I don't know, it's just one of those bands that the five of us really connected with, both vocally and like their stage presence. And then they ended up coming to Florida and playing with us after that record came out, and they were so good live, so good live. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
never got. I never. Oh, sorry. I never got to see him live, so I'm jealous.
sure. And I don't think they were around that long, if I'm mistaken.
No,
So
I think like the only thing that I had from them is the split with you guys.
gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I maybe a 7-inch came out before that, and that was it. But then, yeah, who knows what happened after that? Another band that we never, unfortunately, got to do a record with, which I'd love to, was One Eyed God Prophecy from
Mm,
Sherbrooke, Ontario, and they played in Tampa as well. And I remember thinking, like, all of us, all five dudes in the band, were like, God, this band is oh my God, they're so good. And I remember like really wanting to do something with them, and then they broke up. So
yeah, it's funny you said that because I was going to ask you about a show, a basement show that you guys played with them, and Jeff said it was like one of his most memorable shows. Do you remember that show, and what did it mean to you to play in that basement with them?
100% remember that. The funny thing is that that show was in my neighborhood where I live right now. It was in a basement, and there are no basements. Well, there's basements in Florida. We played one, but basements are really, really minimal in Tampa because the water level is so high that you can't dig. So I remember it being really hot, like what you experienced in Destin. That in a, you know,
Yeah,
so and it's just super crowded. I loved when still do, when shows are just jammed and people are jammed together, and you can feel everything the band's putting out. And they were just, yeah, they were super super loud and intense, and the vocalist just kind of like crumbled up into a ball because I guess he had anxiety issues from just being claustrophobic.
yeah.
And just the idea of that, like him pushing through that to create that brutal music that they were playing, was so inspiring. But yeah, I'm stoked that Jeff had mentioned that as one of his favorite shows, because I would say that was probably my top five as well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely. I definitely wanted to ask you about that for sure, definitely.
yep.
He also said that you guys don't have basement shows because all the ground is like
Yeah,
sand and everything just sinks into the
that,
sand. And
that,
speaking of basement shows, I know how, like the talk with Ray, you were saying, well, he was saying that, I don't know if he meant that it meant less or meant more, but I feel like tight shows, like you were saying, in basements or small clubs where everybody's packed in, I mean, to me, I feel more energy.
yeah,
I feel more closeness. I've seen huge stadium shows. I've seen big hardcore shows and like bigger venues too. And it doesn't mean as much to me personally on a personal level than a
yeah,
small basement or a tiny club where everybody's all in, the band sets up on the floor, everybody's around them. Like, it's just, not that he thought that was worse or better, but I feel in my mind it's a lot better.
yeah.
What do you think?
100%. There was some shows that we played in Europe where we asked, we were like, we can't play on stage, we just can't do it. And then we got down within the crowd, and had everyone surround us. We had to play, not had to, I mean, it was amazing. We played the Columbus Fest on that tour with Asshock in '98, and I remember we had to play on a huge stage at that show, and it was so uncomfortable for us because there is that connection to the crowd that is so important to, and I think, that style of music. And we didn't have it, and it just felt so bizarre being up there. Um, but yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, having that close knit connection to that style of music. I mean, really part of it. It makes that music what it is, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I also wanted to ask the influence of your energy. Like, there's not many, especially back then, there wasn't a ton of bands that were, especially with you, so, like, you were like a fireball, you know what I mean, live. What kind of brought that on? What was the influence of you having so much energy and moving around and like, having the power that Reversal Man had?
Well, I will tell you this. I am really nervous right now talking to you. So I would say it probably came from anxiety, because I get really anxious being in front of people talking. I think for me, it was a way, because I would have to do vocals with my eyes closed as well for the most part. And it was definitely an anxious reaction to that, but also in my mind, my favorite bands at the time, like for instance Portraits of Past, or trying trying to think of someone else of that genre. Like when I would see videos of like Uranus play, Uranus, it was just like intense, like ball of energy. Felt like that was the only way that music could be played. It'd have to be intense. It'd have to be like a little uncomfortable in a good way. And then I think that on top of my anxiety, just like, I don't know. I feel like I had a lot of, there was a lot of things going on for me at the time as well. I think even for those 5 years, like traveling was also really hard for me with all the touring we did. And I think it was just a way to get out that anxiety too. I really think, I mean, that's one of the reasons I still ride so much as I do now, BMX, because it's my therapy. It's my, maybe it was kind of a therapeutic response to things. Um, I was also like really, really depressed on a lot of our tours too. And I think that, that like letting out that energy was a way to handle that as well. I don't know if I have a real good answer for that, but, that's the way, the way it happened.
Yeah. No, I deal with anxiety as well. To tell you, when I first started doing these talks, I was nervous, so nervous, anxiety. I could feel it up in here, and you could tell on my first like few talks, even with Jeff, I'm like stuttering and saying the same thing over and over again. And I'm not gonna lie, every time it's almost like when I went on stage, I'd get a little, weird butterflies up here, get a little anxiety, and now it's a little bit better since, there's been 50 talks since Jeff, but I've gotten better, but I still have the nervousness and anxiety too. And I feel like I told this in a bunch of other talks that this is almost like therapeutic to me to just talk to somebody face to face, because I was kind of a quiet guy, kept to myself, even though I was in bands and I was all throughout the scene up here and stuff like that. I saw a million bands, recorded a million bands. It was just, it's very therapeutic for me to kind of get out of my box and talk to somebody face to face that like I don't really know. I've talked to some friends, but I feel like, I totally understand, because I've asked a few people and they've been like, some of my friends, and they're like, oh, I just like, I'm nervous about it and I just feel off, and I'm totally understandable about that. So I just wanted to let you know, kind of on my side of things, that, anxiety is like a big thing for me as well.
Gotcha. I completely empathize with that for sure. Absolutely.
I wanted to speak about Revolution Summer. I'm not really going to speak about Get the Kid with the Sideburns, because it's been, it's a beating a dead horse, you know what I mean? But that was a huge album, and it kind of was like the breakthrough album for you guys, kind of like that, where everybody kind of heard that album. What did you think of that album and the, the exposure that it got you guys, even if it was in a smaller scale?
That I think the artwork for me is probably the most important aspect of that album. That album reminds me of Dan Ratty, our guitarist, who I still absolutely love. Such an awesome person, and we were just really tight at the time. And that was the first record that he came into the band and had written with us, and it just reminds me of Dan Ratty. I don't know, like above and beyond everything that happened with the band. I don't know. I other than him being a huge part of that, that's what that album reminds me of. And it was for us, like going into that tour with Assuck, looking back, probably 6 weeks of my, 6 of my favorite weeks of my life, So, I really enjoyed it. I remember us recording that album. We recorded it with Steve from Assuck at Morrisound, which Morrisound is a really big metal recording studio. I don't know if I'm assuming they still do that. I just passed it the other day, actually. But I remember recording that album and having an awesome time recording it. I remember actually reading Animal Farm as we were recording it, which is funny because a lot of Orwellian stuff. I was reading a lot of George Orwell at the time, and the next year I actually took an independent study on George Orwell and studied all of his nonfiction, and that played heavily into This Is Medicine, like lyric-wise, which is funny. We were recording Revolution Summer, and it was about that summer and us being friends, and I don't take that lightly at all. Like, friendship to me is still an incredibly, incredibly important thing for me. All the guys that I ride with, I've been friends with since those days, 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
And so, that whole theme of the whole theme of Revolution Summer and the idea of friendship is still incredibly important to me. And Yeah, it was an awesome time putting those songs together. That song "Hollow Body" for me has the most resonance overall. It was a song that was written about this really terrible dream that I had and about a friend involved in it. Not to go too much into detail, but
Yeah,
I just love the way the song sounded. I love the way the lyrics had kind of flowed into it, and yeah, I mean, I don't, yeah, great. I,
yeah.
I enjoyed it for sure. So
I still have the cover. It's like I opened it up like this and I stuck it on my work wall, and it's still been up there ever since like it first came out. So it's been
yeah,
out there for about 20 plus years.
awesome.
And on top of that, I still have my copy of This Is Medicine as well, which I don't know if you know, but I have two Reversal Man tattoos as well.
I don't think I knew that. That is awesome, though. That's
Yeah, yeah. I have the cowboy zombie on my elbow
amazing.
right here, and then I have the doctors with the bodies slumped over in the basket on my leg. I'll send it to you after.
Please do. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like Reversal Man was just huge, and in '98, especially when I saw that tour with Assoc and you guys up in Rochester, New Hampshire. Do you remember that show specifically?
I do. There were two really important things that happened to that show, actually. One was me meeting Jason Hammaker and hanging out with Jason Hammaker from Frodis,
Yeah,
who has been a huge, huge influence on me and still is. I ended up putting out a collection of short nonfiction stories in 2012 and dedicated it to him because he was such an influence on that writing process. And then actually, that was when I found out that my grandmother um, had an aneurysm. I actually found out that day of that show, so it was really emotional for me because the same, woman I was just mentioning who had raised me, I'd found that, basically there was a finite amount of time left for her.
yeah,
So, which was really hard because 98. So we toured for what, two more summers after that, and then both of those extended periods of time, I was away from her, and I knew that our time was limited together. So it made it really difficult to travel because the next 2 summers we were on the road. Well, I mean, unfortunately, I went home, but we were on the road for 3 months those next 2 summers. So, but yes, I
yeah.
do that show. Sorry, long story short, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, that was a great show and a great lineup too. I don't know if you remember the band Bastion, but they opened up the show.
Yes.
And then it was Jerome's Dream also on that, and then Frodis, you
Yep.
guys, and then Assoc, which I remember correctly that there was a bunch of fights during Assoc, and they only played I think 5 or 6 songs before there was at least I think like 2 or 3 fights, and the owner of the place, Safe and Sound in Rochester, New Hampshire, shut it down. So unfortunately, Assoc only played 5 or 6 songs, which I was super bummed out about.
Yeah, I remember that part. That's crazy. Wow. Huh.
I
I,
think it was like some crusty kids and some straight edge kids were like fighting, and it just turned into like a bunch of different fights. And but I remember that show like super good because I remember buying the Misery Index green Assoc shirt, which I wish I still had, but unfortunately I lost.
That's a bummer. Yeah, I mean, side note, Assuck was just for all of us here. They were the band. Assuck was, gosh, man, I remember seeing them live for the first time and thinking, what did I just witness? That was
Yeah.
unbelievable. So,
Yeah, they blew me away. I was just so bummed that I only got to see like maybe a little bit more than half the set.
gotcha.
Um, um, I do want to talk about This Is Medicine. Who came up with the artwork and all that? I think the artwork inside the pamphlet is so great. Who came up with all that artwork stuff?
That is all Chris Norris from Stake Mountain, who ended up being our final guitarist. Who Chris was in Combat Wounded Veteran.
Yep.
He was, I mean, he did vocals. He also played guitar as well, and then he played guitar in Reversal Man. But that was all Chris and Stake Mountain, who, I mean, he's still doing artwork. He did for the triple LP that we're putting out with Repeater. He did, the layout and stuff for that as well.
Oh, nice,
The
nice. Oh,
not the internal stuff. The internal stuff is just repeated um, text from all the other albums that we put out that maybe a lot of people didn't get to see. But he did the 3 covers for it. But yeah, all Chris Norris, and then Mike Delac, who is a friend of ours who actually lives in my neighborhood as well, had a lot to do with laying out a lot of that stuff. He helped with the Revolution Summer album cover with Dan Ratty, and he helped with This Is Medicine, the cover of This Is Medicine, and then Chris did all the internal artwork in there. So
yeah. And that was like that wasn't the first thing on Ebullition though. Was the Los Crudos split the first thing that
that
came out?
The Los Crudos split was an accident.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah. So what? So This Is Medicine, because the Los Crudos Reversal Man split is just This Is Medicine, correct? I
Yes,
don't.
yeah. Well, I thought it had less songs though, right?
Oh, did it? Oh, honestly, I never had a copy, but I knew it was a misprint. I think the record. I'd have to ask Jeff this, but I'm pretty sure the pressing plant screwed up and put half on one and half on the other, and Kid
Oh,
just.
no kidding.
But
Oh,
yeah,
that's crazy.
we were super stoked on it. We were huge fans of Los Crudos. Like
Yeah.
our first tour, sorry, our second tour, which we went up to the Midwest, we actually did that tour in the back of a pickup truck, which is frightening. Totally right. I mean, there was a cover on it, but we had all of our equipment and we were sleeping in the back. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But Martine from Crudos put on her show in Indianapolis, and we played with Three Studies for Crucifixion,
Ooh.
Crudos. I remember being four other bands at the time we were really into. But point of the story is Martine was awesome. And going back to one of the best shows I'd ever seen in Florida was Los Crudos in Gainesville with
Yeah.
Tired From Now On at a house, which is literally right near. My wife works at UF in Gainesville, and it's right down the road from her place in Gainesville, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Yeah. I love Three Studies too. That band was so good too.
so yeah.
That's a great lineup. That show you just played. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. So how did Ebullition even get into the fold? Did they just reach out to you? How did that happen?
Yeah, we did an interview in Heart Attack. I think it was the summer of '98, maybe early summer of '98. We had an interview in Heart Attack that one of the dudes from Sufi Nun Squad had put together, and then we actually played Goleta Fest in 1998 with Assuck on that tour. So we played Goleta, which it's funny because I travel out there a lot for work, and Goleta is part of Santa Barbara, but a lot of people just call it Santa Barbara. So I'm like, where's Goleta? And it's just this tiny little
Yeah.
beach. You know? But yeah, we played that fest at Goleta. We actually stayed at I won't go into that story. That's a whole other crazy story. But I think Kent saw us at the show and was into it, and then approached us later on about doing that full length. So,
Yeah.
which we were stoked on. Ebullition became, like, for me, well, the Downcast LP for me was a huge deal. I made an Instagram post probably 8 years ago about it, but I was so naive that I thought you wore out vinyl when I was a kid. So I bought a second copy of the Downcast LP because I listened to it so much that I thought I was going to wear it out. So, like, I was really into, like, Sawhorse. I was really into, like, the early Ebullition stuff, and obviously when that Portraits of the Past LP came out, it was a super huge deal. Like, I remember on that the next year's tour, or maybe it was the tour with Assuck, we stayed at the Jerome's Dreams house. The dudes from Jerome's Dream, they were living together, and I remember all of us in their basement, if I'm not mistaken, listening to that Portraits of the Past album, going, "Dude,
Oh,
this is
no kidding.
so good."
Yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely. I love Portraits of Past. Repeater Records. I don't know if it's Seth on here, but he just said that it was This Is Medicine on that split with Los Crudos, the whole thing.
gotcha.
One side was that This Is Medicine, which I thought, I don't know why I thought it was like a couple songs shy of it, but I was proven wrong. So
Gotcha.
I don't know. Shout out to Seth if that's him.
Thanks
uh,
for reaching out to us and working with us too on this next project. I'm really excited about it. So
yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. I think it's awesome, especially what Repeater Records is doing. What the layout that you and that discography that they did, and is this a complete full discography? Because I know that the other discography that came out was just kind of like compilation songs, splits. The demo was on there. Is this like everything?
this is everything. Yeah, 52 or 53 songs, and then
Wow.
yeah, and again, props to Repeater for even offering that to us, and honestly, serious props to Jeff for taking the time to do all the work. I mean, he puts so much work and so much time into that, and he is so incredibly busy. So for him to even find an inkling of time to work on that, super props, to him for doing that.
Yeah, that's that. How did it come about when they put it to you? You know what I mean? Were they like, hey, we want to put out the whole discography, everything? We're gonna
Yeah,
make a sweet layout. Were you pumped? I know it's so long ago, that Reversal Man, but I mean, I still feel like a lot of people in my circle still talk about you guys a lot.
Yeah, I mean, no, absolutely humbling for sure. And yeah, of course, super excited that people care. I mean, it's really humbling and awesome. Yeah, a little like taken aback too. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy that this is a big project to do as well.
Yeah.
So, and again, thanks to them for wanting to take on a project of that, that size, I guess. So, but yeah, super to see it come out too.
Now, the last thing that Reversal Man ever recorded was the Combat Wounded Veteran release split, right? Was that the very final songs that you guys did, very
Yeah,
last songs?
that was
Yeah.
the last 5 songs we wrote. We wrote those for the most part in Orlando. We had practice spaces. We started in Orlando. I would commute out there. I would actually get, not to go off on a tangent, but I would actually get rides from random people to this truck stop that was halfway between Tampa and Orlando. And then John, our drummer, would come pick me up. But he was delivering Chinese food for work, and sometimes he wouldn't get off till late. So I would sit at this super sketchy truck stop and wait for him to come pick me up. So the story is we practiced in Orlando, then we practiced in Tampa for a while, and then we again moved back out to Orlando, which made it really difficult to practice
Yeah.
because 4 of us were here and John was in Orlando. So we'd go out there, and then over the course of that last like 10 months, 5 songs was really all we had time to write. And then those were the last 5 songs that came on that combat split, which were all um I was going through a pretty rough time then, and was reading a lot of like really like just existential. I was getting really into existential literature, and I
Yeah.
got really into reading T.S. Eliot, which I'm kind of regretful of at this point. But that his The Wasteland poem had a huge. Well, I mean, it influenced those last 5 songs, which were, I mean, unbeknownst to me at the time, like it was the band breaking up. Like those lyrics were of the crumbling of something that I put my heart and soul, all of us put our heart and soul into,
Yeah.
and it was the foreshadowing of it crumbling. So
So when Reversal Man ended, is that when BMX started being like a full-time thing for you? And also, this is a second part question, I guess. After like maybe a year or two, were you itching to be in a hardcore band again, or were you kind of just like, all right, like that's kind of in the past for now, and I want to pick up on something different and maybe go to another avenue?
um no, I mean, I wish I had time to be in a band right now, to be honest with you. It was the band broke up. I was trying to get into graduate school, which didn't work out. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she had got into grad school. I actually was wanting to teach, and then I ended up getting a job offer at an insurance company, which I'm so thankful I didn't take. And that same day, I got hired by Profile, which is the company I started writing for in 1998. So the last 2 years of Reversal Man, I was actually writing for this company that I now work for. So I got a job with them in 2001, like as an industry person. So I've been there 20 years now, actually. And I managed their team and I managed their sales. But no, it wasn't that I didn't have a connection to it anymore. I mean, I still went to shows. It was just something that I didn't expect. That was a dream job that was just kind of just thrown in my lap. I mean, literally thrown in my lap. It was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm like, yeah, of course I want this. This is incredible.
yeah,
So, but then in 2003, I ended up joining a band called Light Yourself on Fire, which was all the guys in Scrog, and who was the band that I looked up to a lot. And for them to ask me to do vocals for them was really humbling. And we played shows from 2003 to 2010, and that was a really, really fun time as well. So,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. Your vocal style is a lot different than Reversal of Man. How did it, it almost reminded me of like like I said, Bird of Omen, kind of lower growly like voice. It wasn't so like high pitched and screamy.
Yeah,
It was more of a kind of growly like Bird of Omen flair
sure.
to it. You know what I mean? What was that purposely like how you wanted to switch up your vocals to that band?
I mean, we kind of all agreed upon it. Like we wanted to do something a little, deeper, metalish more, which was
Yeah.
what we agreed upon. And then honestly, it took me a while to get my vocals to that, to that like, I guess I should say. But yeah, I mean, I think screaming, as a raw scream, it's definitely more of a reversal of man tone. Like that is I guess what it sounds like when I'm just screaming my head off, where
Yeah,
like
yeah,
more like a guttural, like like guttural noise or a guttural scream. But
I also wanted to talk about Meat Wound. I know you did like a couple guest vocals on, was it the EP that they first put out? That
it, not their first release. It was their second to last release that they put out. Dan, who was so Dan Shook was the Dan Shook's a really old friend of ours, a really good friend of mine as well, and he was the roadie for Ass Suck on that '98 tour. He started Combat when it vetted with Chris, our guitarist, our Chris Norris at the very end, and then
yeah,
Dan actually ended up becoming my roommate. Um, Years and years down the road, he was my roommate for about 5 years, which also best roommate I ever had. He was great. He still lives
yeah.
in Tampa. He's such an awesome dude. But he invited me to do those guest vocals, and I couldn't
Mm.
resist. Especially one was a Ministry cover, which I love Ministry. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
their taste, and Dan and I we like some questionable bands, So
So had it been a while since you did vocals when you did the Meat Wound stuff?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I didn't, yeah, I just tried to do something guttural to match his, but I mean, he's an excellent vocalist, man. He's like, his vocals are so powerful, and it doesn't like, when he's doing vocals, he doesn't strain to do vocals, where like it almost hurts me to do vocals.
Yeah, yeah.
Reversal Man, I was in a lot of pain when we were playing. I mean, physically, I was in a lot of pain too. I got hurt a lot. I fell
Yeah.
off stage. I got hit. Dan Ratty hit me in the face with a guitar on a European tour on accident. I had to go to the emergency room then. Um, and then I'd always accidentally hit myself in the face with a microphone, which sucked. But point of the story is, me doing vocals was painful, and then Dan, obviously he just had such an easier job to do it. But
Yeah.
yeah, he invited me to do the vocals on those two songs. I couldn't resist, and there we went. So.
Yeah. Speaking of vocals, I know you were saying that you don't really like, not that you don't like your vocals, but almost on a recording. And I'm similar to the same thing. Anything that I've recorded, I've listened to, and I've been like, God, I hate like my vocals. I just do not like it. And then we'll play live, and it seems like my vocals were 100 times better. Like I'd watch a video or something like that. Is that kind of similar to you? I mean, playing live, to me, the energy was better anyways than recording. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't really enjoy recording anyways, but like, I kind of was like in the same vein as you when you were saying that, you don't really like the sound of your vocals, but then it's all about the live show. Is that kind of how it is?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. Like in Light Yourself on Fire, we did a live show that we recorded, and that was the one recording that I really liked. So had we I think Reversal Man recorded some live stuff with me. I mean, they did that Che Cafe recording, which was I had left tour by then. But I think had we done something live that we could have recorded from the live recording, I would have been more stoked on it, I think. So,
Yeah.
like you said, the energy was there. It was like there was a connectivity to the audience and reciprocation there that you just can't. How do you do that other than playing a live show and recording it? So
Yeah, exactly. And I feel your pain with being in pain. I screamed so much for 10 years that I developed like a TMJ type of thing. So on my last band that I ever was in, we'd practice, and I'd get these crazy migraines, and my jaw would click up here, and I
yeah,
was like, you know what, I don't think I can like scream anymore. So I kind of gave up screaming. I mean, I could probably be in a piebald, cover band now. I'd be willing to do that, but other than that, I don't think I could scream again, honestly. And I also wanted to ask you about, where did you come up with the duct tape around your hand with the microphone? Did you get that from somebody else, or were you just like out of,
that that was at a necessity actually. We that was at the Columbus Fest in '98. We played that show, and I'd have to ask Jeff. Maybe he doesn't know. We got charged $180 because I broke 3 microphones. So I did it to not break microphones
Yeah,
because we were losing our tour money to replacing equipment. So
yeah,
I did it out of necessity. And also I'd have because like I said, I would do vocals with my eyes closed, and I would lose the mic sometimes, and I couldn't find it. So I'm just like standing around like screaming with a microphone. So it was just easier that I always knew where it was if I duct taped it to my hand. So
yeah. I always wanted to ask because you see so many pictures of you with the duct tape, like from that. Was it just that show, or was it
No, it started at that show, and then we did it intermittently through '98, and then honestly, I think from then on, I just did it. I
Did
just
it? Yeah.
always did to not screw. And also, if we're playing someone's house or something, I don't want to mess up. I don't
Yeah.
want to mess up, but then I'd feel bad. So yeah, but yeah, out of necessity, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I also wanted to touch on the Tin Can Fest up in
Mhm.
New England that Pete from Sinaloa, Pete Zetlin, did. I know you did one of those fests, and then you didn't do that the second time that Reversal played, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. Second one was I left in Providence, believe it or not. We played a show with who do we play with in Providence? It was a huge deal too for us. It was Orchid actually. We played with Orchid, and then I had a breakdown. I'm like I gotta go, and then I'm pretty sure that Tin Can Fest might have been the next day or the day after.
Yeah.
That was the and then the first one that we played was with that tour with Assock, and it was with Frodis again as well. And I remember that show extremely vividly. That was such an awesome time. And again, it's New England. I mean, it never lets you down. Like other than my mental, like the anxiety attack that I had up there, which had nothing to do with New England. It had something to do with me and the band. But we just get up there and feel like being at home. New England has always been kind of a second home to me. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Pete always put on the great fest. I know we only did four of those, but every lineup was like incredible. And the last one that he actually did, Combat played. Jeff came up and played, or I think it was like Orchid's last few shows. I think
yep.
it might have been like the second to last show that they played, and I got to record like pretty much that whole day when Combat and Orchid played, and Pete's band Sinaloa played, and there was just like a bunch of bands. Wolves played and stuff like that. It was a really, really, really good lineup. He always put on the greatest, and it was for a great cause too, as well. I mean, breast cancer cause is amazing. So
100%. And Pete's just an awesome person. He's just a really awesome person. So
yeah, I mean, they always say he's the nicest guy in hardcore, which is true because he's
yeah.
just a great person. It's funny, my last show that I set up, I used to do shows even when I wasn't in bands. I got Sinaloa to play one of the last shows that I ever did up here in Kingston, New Hampshire. It was with, I'm not sure if you know the band Bravo Fucking Bravo, but they played in Reed Yellow and stuff like that. So it was a really, really good show up here.
Awesome.
Speaking of newer bands, are you listening to the newer hardcore, like screamo type of stuff nowadays, or is it kind of like, you're not really in tune with like the new stuff now?
I would say honestly, I'm not. I get a lot of my new music from actually my buddy Vic at Circuit BMX up in Providence. I hate to say this, I'm kind of stuck in a dark wave rut right now. I've been listening to a lot of like actors and I've been listening to a lot of Soft Kill actually, and Glare. But yeah, I mean, no, unfortunately not. Nothing newer. I mean, as a side note, you mentioned Daughters earlier too. That last Daughters album is phenomenal. Like that. I mean, it's not of that genre, but it's still like that is the style of music right now for me that I'm like so into.
Yeah. That
But
Daughters album killed it.
oh, it's so good. But no, unfortunately not. I'm still like when I ride is mostly when I listen to music, and unfortunately I'm still stuck. I was listening to Portraits of Past the other day when I was riding,
Yeah.
which is funny because it's not at all the style of writing that I like. That music for me doesn't translate to the style of writing I do, but for some reason that I can listen to it and it still really inspires me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, do you listen to hip hop when you're riding at all?
Um, Not necessarily, no. I honestly I mostly listen to like older punk rock and honestly still like a lot of death rock and dark wave stuff is usually what I'm listening to.
Yeah.
So I'm still I mean definitely love hip hop for sure.
Yeah.
I usually honestly I usually listen to that when I'm driving, to be honest with you. So
Yeah. Now, did you guys ever play with? I don't know if Daughters was around when you guys ended, or I know As the Sun Sets, Lex's old band and John's old band was. Did you guys ever play with As the Sun Sets
no,
or Daughters?
no, we never played with them. Light Yourself on Fire played its first show with Daughters. Second show with Daughters, but that was when Daughters had a very I mean, to me they sounded like the Locust, not a bad thing at all, but I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
it was very much like the Locust. And then like I said, I had listened to some of their early releases, and I believe they went on hiatus for a really long time, right?
yeah. I think they went on hiatus for, I don't know if it was 5 or 8 years. It was a big gap in
Yeah.
between.
Yeah, and then my last New England trip before this last one was when that last album came out, and my writing buddies were playing. I'm like, who is this? They're like, it's Daughters. I'm like, this is phenomenal. Like this,
Yeah,
like I remember they were playing. So, and that album is just like everything from every song. There's no filler on that album. It's so good.
yeah, yeah. Lex is still an amazing frontman too. Like watching him live, even now is he puts it all out there completely. I don't know if you caught the tour that they just did, before COVID had hit, but God,
They played
he's
Tampa, blew it. I didn't go, and I honestly I have no idea why I didn't go, and I should have. So.
yeah, yeah. One more show that I wanted to ask about. You were talking about Scrog. I think Jeff had mentioned that they kind of did a reunion show for your wedding. Like, how did how did that work out, and how was that?
It was incredible. It's and my wife and I actually got married in Scotland. We eloped, and then Scrog played our wedding party at New World, which was a venue in Ybor, and I knew a lot of people were going to be there, but I didn't think the show was going to sell out.
Yeah,
So it's a small venue, and I think they shut the doors off at 400 people. It was
really.
insane. Yeah, it was completely insane. And they were Scrog. I mean, their deal was, I mean, they're just sludgy, slow. Everything's dropped down to D, drop D. And I mean, it shakes you when they play. I mean, you're literally like just your body, your bones are shaking. But it was cool. A couple of my family members kind of hung out and saw a little bit of that, and they're like, "Wow, this is." But yeah,
Uh,
that was an honor they would do that. So
um, well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want to touch on the BMX side of things before I get into my rapid fire stuff. How's the BMX stuff going? Being at your age, like injuries, obviously, when you fall or something like that, it must be a lot worse now than when you were like a kid. I know I'm itching on 50 years old, and I know if I fell off a bike, I'd probably be pretty hurt. How are like the injuries from falling and stuff like that like impacting you now, being older?
um, I have a little bit of back pain. I think for me, it's just the idea of a body in motion stays in motion. I mean, I try to exercise daily. With riding, I'm still riding 4 5 days a week, so it's rote memory, it's repetitive motion, and I think that's kind of what keeps me going. I mean, I've had my fair share of injuries. I've also gotten really lucky, and the style of riding that I do too is not. It's really like technical based and very low. Like I ride a lot of smaller ramps, so if I do fall, it's not going to hurt as bad.
Yeah,
And, I mean, I still do things that scare the shit out of me sometimes. I'm not going to lie, but for the most part, like I kind of keep it within something that I know I can do, so the risk levels are low. So I just keep risk at as low as possible. Even though my buddy's ramp, I literally just rode this afternoon's 9 foot tall, which was scary. Like every time I go, gosh, on this. So
yeah. Um, Also, I know probably somebody like asks you all the time about reunion of Reverse Man. I mean, I know you've said that it'll never happen. But how many times do you hear it over and over again? Like, hey, because you see like Jerome Stream got back together again.
yeah,
H99 kind of did some shows for like benefits. Majority Rule kind of did the same type of thing. How many times do you hear it? Is it kind of just like repetitive, where you're kind of sick of it, saying like, all right, we're not gonna do a reunion, even though the fans would love to
sure.
see it.
No,
Is it kind of like old news to you?
no, it's not. I mean, it's humbling. I mean, I'm stoked that people would love to see it happen. I mean, it would be awesome for it to happen, but it can't. I mean, I haven't talked to our drummer since since the day we broke up. Um, Well, I mean, sorry, not before we broke up. We came back on our last European tour. John, we've parted ways, and I haven't talked to him since. I mean, it's been 20 years, so there's no way that I don't even know how I would bridge that gap, at this point. So, and he was an imperative part of the band. So without him, we couldn't do it. And Chris Norris wouldn't do it either, which I respect that as well. So just to
Yeah.
have the last avatar of Reversal Man together to play a show is not possible. So it it couldn't happen. But no, I mean, it's awesome that people would love to see it. I would love to experience it one more time. I'll tell you that for sure. But no, it never. I mean, it's humbling. And again, thank you for taking your time to do this interview. I mean, it's humbling you would ask all these questions too about
Yeah.
something that I'm honored that it has a positive effect on people. So
Yeah, definitely. I was so stoked on this talk. Honestly, right when I reached out to you, it was like, I was pumped for it all that time. And then I went on vacation and I'm like, oh, Jesus, I got to wait like this much longer and stuff like that. So I know you said you had an itch for being, in a band or whatever. Like, in your mind, what would that band kind of sound like? Would it be like not as screamy, like you said, because sometimes screaming is like such a physical, sometimes it can hurt. Would it be kind of like a mellower band, or would you really want to be in another heavy band again?
man, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, all and above. I mean, everything. I mean, I was listening to Actors today from San Diego, and I'm like, man, this would be really cool to do vocals for this band. But no, I mean, the energy. I think for me, like probably like yeah, definitely like more like a loud band for sure, just so I could kind of lose myself within the live set. Again, it's less recordings for me, and it's more the action of actually playing a show that was really important to me and that I would love to be a part of. Again, that would be awesome. But yeah, more than likely that. I mean, unless Actors needs a new vocalist, maybe I would try to be a vocalist for Actors.
And you said time restraints too. It's tough to, especially, being married and having a wife, and I have two daughters and I have two dogs and I have a full-time job and stuff like that. So it's like the time frame of doing things and just getting that little bit of time to do a band. I mean, I always think about it, but then I'm like thinking of all the time that I don't have. It's just not possible. Is that kind of you're just so busy with life in itself that it just wouldn't work out?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely. I mean, there's not enough. I wish there were 30 hours in the day. I really did, or really do, I should say. But yeah, it's definitely hard. I work really far from here as well. Like I have an hour commute back and forth, so it's an added 2 hours of my day every day just driving to work, and
Yeah.
then riding takes up a lot of my time because I mean, I'm still that into riding bikes. I mean, that's all. Minus being here with Ariel and supporting her. She's um, working on another degree right now, and I want to be here to support her as well. But any minute I get to break away, I just want to go ride. But
Yeah.
it would be cool if I could fit in a band, but it's probably not possible, unfortunately. So
Yeah. Like I said, I'm so amped that Jeff got into Horsewhip and created that
um,
band. That band, I love Horsewhip so much.
yeah,
That last album that they put out, I was like, Jesus, this is, and it touches with all kinds of stuff. It touches with like, crust and like the screamo kind of aspect to it, and like it kind of flows and with different, heaviness to it, and just blew me away.
yeah, they're another band too. Like live, you got to see Horsewhip live because they're so intense and so visceral and but yeah, the album's great. Live, even better. It's so good.
Yeah. I gave Jeff a little bit of shit because he only made it to New York, and I was like, because when they did that quick little tour, because they only had a small gap of time to I think it was 9 dates or something. I was like, oh man, you didn't come up to Boston, and he's like, I know, we made it all the way to New York, and then it was like a shit show to drive from. I think he said from North Carolina all the way back to Florida after that last show. They just went straight through. So yeah, I was like kind of giving them a little shit that they never made it up to Boston.
Yeah, they're and every person in that band too is awesome too. They're just a good group of people as well, man. So yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully
yeah,
some team live.
yeah, definitely. I mean, with COVID stuff being so scary nowadays, I know up here they're doing just a lot of clubs up here are just doing like vaccination cards, or you have to show a negative COVID test. And to me, it's surprising because I'm vaccinated. I don't care if anybody isn't, but just for me, I am, and I'm still kind of like weary of like going to a show with all those people, especially with like the Delta variant and all that shit. So I'm just kind of taking it easy, and maybe I'm going to, when I turn 50 in 2022, maybe I'll hit a couple shows then. But I
Sure.
think I'm just trying to take it safe now, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Front 242 is playing this month, and I so to go, but I'm because of the variants and stuff. And Florida is a little crazy right now with COVID, so yeah, I'll probably not take the risk. But I want to, but to go see them play. But so it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, like I said, I don't want to take too much of your time. I know it's Sunday, and but I'm going to shoot some rapid fire questions that I do every talk to everybody I talk to. So number one would be favorite New England punk hardcore band for you.
Ooh, man. Well, his hero's gone. Lived in Providence for a while, so I'm gonna say Converge because of Halo in a Haystack having such a huge influence on me, for sure. So,
Yeah,
yep.
definitely. My second question: what was the first punk hardcore show you attended? That was like a real punk hardcore show, not kind of like a Battle of the Bands type of thing.
Fugazi. Yeah, Fugazi on the Repeater tour, actually. Mm-hmm.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah. They played with it was them and who did they play with? I honestly can't remember. But they were incredible live for sure.
Yeah, wow, that's a great first show, definitely. My third question: all-time favorite punk hardcore show you played in Reversal, man, or it could have been Light Yourself on Fire.
Ooh.
Give me a couple because I know you guys played so many shows.
Yeah, that's a really hard one. There was a show that we played in the streets of Bordeaux in France, which was really, really wild. That was a wild scene. Our last European show in Kassel, Germany was one of note for sure. That was an incredible show. That basement show, One Eyed God Prophecy, was something else. I would say my most favorite show that we ever played was at my ex-boss's house in his living room.
Oh, no kidding.
Really weird relationship. It was, I mean, he's still a friend of mine, but at the time, working for someone is really difficult. So it was actually really awesome to like vent in his living room. So, that was awesome.
Oh, that's great. All right, my next question: all-time favorite punk hardcore show you attended that you didn't play, that you kind of went and saw.
That is a good one. Man, honestly, it would probably Los Crudos and Inhumanity in Gainesville. I would say that for me was those two bands were incredible live, and Chris from Inhumanity was so scary live. Yeah, I would have to say the second one would be Jesus Lizard. Seeing Jesus Lizard live,
Nice.
Crazy. So
that's awesome. I always ask this because I'm a huge movie fan. I try to watch as many movies as possible. Some people aren't movie people. I am. Mm-hmm. I always ask this: what was the last movie you watched?
Do documentaries count?
No, it's got to be a movie.
Last movie I saw, I honestly, I'm kind of in this documentary. I've been watching documentaries and TV shows more than anything that I honestly couldn't tell you what movie. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Speaking of documentaries, I had just watched, and you said Wasp earlier. I watched the Chris Holmes story that was on Amazon Prime. It was it's only like an hour and 15 minutes, but it was like the Chris Holmes story of like he's playing in band, like his own band now, and he's singing and stuff like that, and how him and Blackie Lawless didn't get along. It's pretty interesting for an hour and 15-minute watch.
Sure.
So, being that you not huge on movies, I always ask you this: favorite all-time horror movie for you?
Ooh, I just had this conversation 2 nights ago with some friends about I was really into Fangoria magazine when I was in elementary school. Man, it's a bummer this interview wouldn't be with Chris Norris because that was his bread and butter. Like horror was, I mean, you can tell from the This Is Medicine artwork, like horror was such a big influence on him. Man, I don't want to sound like a poser because I don't the horror movies that I would watch were more mainstream. Ooh, you know what movie, and this is probably not a horror movie, that really messed with my head was Event Horizon. That movie, it was like scientifically, even though like the premise was impossible, just like the idea of going outside of this galaxy and some external force possessing you was so frightening.
I definitely enjoyed Event Horizon, definitely. Yeah. Now was that John Carpenter, or was that I think it was.
I don't remember. I saw it in the movie theater in 1997, and it was. I remember leaving, going, that was unnerving. Like I'm scared. I'm literally like that. So
yeah, that was a good movie, definitely. I got two more questions.
Sure.
If you've been listening to hip hop at all, I know I kind of touched base on it a little bit. What have you been listening to for hip hop? If you've been listening to it at all?
I have, honestly, I've been on a Wu-Tang kick for probably 5 years. Like my buddy G was one. He lives up in Philly, and he was one of the first folks to play them on college radio. And I actually just saw him in Philly too. And every time I go up there, I hear the most amazing stories of that crew.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably Wu-Tang would be who I'd listen to most recent.
Nice. And my final question is, what was your favorite song to play live with the Reversal of Man? What was the favorite one?
Oh man, that's a good question. Ooh, um,
Or maybe give me one or two or three.
I
I
mean,
know it's probably hard to pinpoint one.
Quantum was always a really big deal for me, and again, that was my connection to Dan Ratty, and what he contributed to the band, and he's just such a kind person, and such a big, like, he was the driving force behind the band, and that song was about him, and that really meant something to me. It still does. So I would say Qantas above probably anything, to be honest with you. So we did write this song called "I'm a New York Detective," that we had written with Jason, our old guitarist. And that song, we only played it live a couple times, and that song was really, really fun too, because it was just it was like our homage to When I Got Prophecy, and I felt like so much like them, kinda. So I really that one too. So
yeah, it's funny you say that, because I put on my story that I always, like, before talks, I put pictures of who I'm talking to on my story. There's probably maybe 10, and that song is, I put it on one of the music parts on one of your pictures.
awesome.
It's very, very ironic that you mentioned that, though.
That's awesome.
I want to thank you again for doing this. I appreciate it so much. It was like, I was so stoked on it, and it's been super fun, and it's great to just, like, see you face to face. Like I said, podcasts are one thing where you just hear somebody talking, and it's not. I feel this is like I said, it kind of flows organically, and we kind of just, like, shoot the shit about whatever, like, that comes up, and I'm just super appreciative that you took the time out to talk to me today, and I want to say thank you.
Hey, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was seriously an honor, and thanks for the humbling words, and thank you very much.
Yeah, and let's let's stay in touch. I feel like every talk I do, I kind of, like, get a new friend too. So, like, if you ever want to reach out and ask me whatever, or you need something, or you're coming up to New Hampshire and you want to see, like, ask me, hey, what should I be doing up in New Hampshire? You know what I mean? I'll be glad to, ask, fulfill any questions you have.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Well, thank you a ton, man. Thanks.
All right, Matt, I'll let you go, but thank you again, man.
Yes, thank you for having me, man. We'll chat soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you again, and have a good night, man.
You too, bud. See ya.